Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blue Star Family's Monday Mondays webinars. This is a program dedicated to conversations about finances in the military. I am your host, Lydiah Owiti, the JP Morgan Chase Financial Wellness Deploy Fellow with Blue Star Family's Campaign for Inclusion Initiative. This is aimed at increasing diversity in leadership within the military and veteran serving organizations. About myself, I'm an Army veteran spouse and an ardent advocate for foreign born military spouses, service members, and their family. This is a special day. As part of the Blue Star Family Welcome Week, the schedule of programs that we have for you this day, we are going to discuss the connections between financial instability and food insecurity, as well as talk long term and short term solutions. We are very excited to have some amazing panelists that are doing profound work in your military communities, especially in regard to finances and food insecurity. I cannot wait to have them tell you all about their missions. With me today, I will take this time to introduce my panelists. We have Catherine Carman. Catherine is a senior economist at Rand Corporation. She's the director of Rand Center for Financial and Economic Decision Making. She's also a professor at the Pardee Rand Graduate School. Catherine's research focuses on behavioral economics and financial decision making. Currently, she is studying retirement decisions and the impacts of COVID-19 on employment and mental health and retirement decisions. Previously, Catherine was an assistant professor at Tilburg University in the Netherlands. She was a Robert Wood Johnson Scholar in Health Policy Research at Harvard University. She received a PhD in economics from Stanford University. We are glad to have you, Catherine. Next, we have Derek. Derek Doyle serves as the Military Family Advisory Network's Associate Director of Government and Public Affairs. As part of this role, Derek manages MFAN's three standing coalitions, which convene military and veteran service organizations, subject matter experts, and thought leaders with a vested interest in addressing military family food insecurity, safe and affordable housing, and financial readiness as well. Previously, Derek served as communications director for the Congressional Award Foundation, the United States Congress's award program for youth, and as a Fowler Legacy Scholar for Federal Affairs. Welcome, Derek. Finally, we have Emily Harrison. Emily is my colleague. She is a Utah chapter director of Blue Star Families. She is an Army spouse, retired. Emily turned her passion for family readiness into a career supporting military families for the last 20 years. That's amazing, Emily. Her professional experience also includes work as a journalist, photojournalist, editor-in-chief, graphic and layout designer, and social media marketer. Emily has been married for almost 21 years to her husband, James, who is now retired from the Army after 22 years of service. They have settled down in the greater Salt Lake City area to be close to family for the first time in their marriage. I understand Emily moving around with the military. They have 4 children. Welcome, Emily. So we are going to dive right in, okay? We are very fortunate today to have some research on this subject, and we are talking about the connection between financial literacy and food insecurity. This research has helped us gain visibility around this subject. Catherine Carman was one of the first to connect the dots between financial instability and food insecurity. Thank you for joining us today, Catherine. We will start with you. So tell us, what was the inspiration behind your research and why did it seem important to you?
I'm very pleased to be here. So food insecurity occurs when people don't have consistent access to food. It could happen when you switch from more expensive food to less costly food, or when you reduce how much food in total you're eating, or in the worst situations when people go an entire day or entire days without eating. And our research was motivated by the fact that when we looked at information about who was experiencing food insecurity, we found that this was not a problem merely of the very poor, but it was something that happened to people who had more income as well. Some people who are very poor manage to avoid food insecurity, and some people who are not very poor are food insecure. We also knew from previous research that food insecurity was higher among people who struggle to smooth their spending out over the course of a month. People who spend a lot of money at the beginning of the month and then run out of money at the end of the month. This is something that happens a lot to people who have food stamps. We know from research that they use up all their food stamps at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month, they have nothing left to pay for food. And it's also a problem for people who have lack access to credit. And we looked at this and we said, there's more going on here than just money. This suggests that there's something about how people manage their money, their financial literacy, and their financial capability, their abilities, not just what they know, but how they're able to navigate the financial system around them that is influencing their food security. And so we really wanted to dig into how what you know might influence your ability to maintain regular access to food.
Awesome. That's very interesting, Kathy, and leads us directly to what would be our second question to just figure out exactly what's going on here. So your research shows that those with higher degrees of financial literacy might be more likely to hold savings that could protect them from this instability and help them avoid food insecurity. The same research opines that at its core, food insecurity is a financial constraint, not a constraint related to food safety. Now, make this clear for me. In your experience, what are some leading causes of financial instability? And what are the largest ramifications, if any?
So, first, I don't want to diminish the role of not having enough money. You need to have enough income. That's definitely sort of the first first level. But that is only one cause. I think the next cause is people who have enough money but can't figure out how to spread that money out over the course of a month. Having a budget and knowing how much you need to spend on necessities, food and rent, and other basic necessities for your children or your family before spending money on other things can really make a difference. Thinking through when in the month um, your your bills are due so that you can figure out how you can spend money over time is really important. And people who haven't thought about those kinds of don't have the financial literacy or the financial capability to think about those problems are going to suffer most. And that's really what our research was trying to understand is how can we figure out what that link is. Um, but financial capability isn't only a problem of what you know. Some of it is the situation that you're in. And it can be really hard to make sound financial choices when you're in a new environment. And I think that this is particularly a problem for military families who have to move to new locations all the time, especially if the new locations you have to move to take you to a new country where you have even less sense of security about what's going on around you. I also want to say I think that inflation today, which is not something that was part of the research we were doing because we were doing that in a time when inflation wasn't really a problem, is also going to contribute to this uncertainty of what people are facing right now.
I understand that very well. Well, I know I'm definitely feeling the pinch, and we have since, left the military, but I can imagine what's going on, with all everything that families have to deal with right now. PCS saying you have to deal with looking for a house, looking for school for kids, and then add on top of that the inflation that makes everything more expensive. So I can only imagine how hard it is. Now, as I get into this article that came out earlier this month about the Army recommending food stamps or the SNAP program for families, There's a quote in the article I'd like to read for you. Based on the Pentagon's own data, 24% of enlisted personnel are food insecure. That's a huge number, said Mackenzie L. Eglon, an analyst at the American Enterprise Institute. While food stamps are a band aid, they are also an admission that basic pay for enlisted troops and their families is too low. Think about that. This is further exacerbated by unyielding inflation causing paychecks to shrink more. Exactly what you just talked about. Now, your research indicates that among food stamp recipients, there's evidence that may fail to smooth consumption over the month, suggesting that policies designed to reduce food insecurity only by providing additional income may not be sufficient. Those are I'm trying to relate everything going around and feeling like, wow, if the money not is not enough, then what else? So, Catherine, what then is the best course of action to heal this wound of financial instability?
So I think there's sort of two pieces of what we can talk about here. And I think that some of the other panelists are going to talk about some of the things that people can do in the moment when there's crisis and they need support. I think the other thing we need to think about is how to prevent those situations from happening in the first place. So the first step, I think everyone, especially those who serve and those who have served, deserves to receive a living wage that's sufficient to support their family. And we need those resources to support them in times of crisis when they don't have that. After that, we need solutions in place to help avoid crisis. So the first, as I was saying before, is to help people to create budgets, and budgets that consider the flow of money over the course of the month. When are they going to get money in? When are there going to be expenses that are due? But that's just one piece, and that requires people to have a lot of their own financial literacy. The next is to build a support system around them that can help them when they are in need. And that, I think, requires a lot of touch points. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable going to their installation's personal financial manager or a DoD personal financial counselor. That might not be the person you feel comfortable talking to. Maybe we need to have other options available to people for who that they can go to when they need support. It might be some peer counselors who can talk to people when they're having problems. Maybe it's helping to make sure that people know where they can get access to different sources. There's a great comment in the comments right now about access to school lunch programs. I think we're really fortunate at the school that my daughter goes to, that we have a great community support person at the school who helps people to have access to different kinds of resources in the community. And we have a lot of Spanish speakers at our school, and she speaks Spanish. And, the idea here is to have lots of different people all around in different places, people who don't all look the same. We need to have people who so that there's many places that you can find someone that you feel comfortable going to. It might be support in the commissary where you're shopping for food. It might be someone who's there providing welcome packets when you arrive in a new location. But just different people that you can talk to about the potential problems. When you arrive somewhere new, where's a cheap grocery store to go to so that you're not shopping at the closest one, which might be the most expensive one. All sorts of different information like that, I think, can be really helpful to people.
Thank you very much, Catherine. This is interesting indeed. If you're joining us now, we are talking about the connection between financial literacy and food insecurity. And I hope you can, share this, comment in the chat, and we'll be able to recognize you and hopefully answer the questions that you have. Thank you for joining us. This is a very interesting topic for me. We know from Blue Star Family's 2021 Financial Pulse Check that education and knowing about resources was reported as a barrier to seeking financial assistance. So truly speaking, financial literacy is paramount. That leads me to our next guest, Derek. For some years now, Military Family Advisory Network has been tackling food insecurity. What are the barriers that you're seeing for military families seeking assistance? And what are some of those barriers specific to military families of color? This is me speaking as someone who's had a different experience within the military. And it's my hope that those like me will be able to relate and, find something interesting about it.
And Blue Star families for organizing this important discussion today. It could not have come at a better time. September marks Hunger Action Month. We're 2 days out from the first White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health in over a half a century. And last week, the Department of Defense announced a series of actions to strengthen the economic security and stability of our service members and their families. So just very quickly, for those who aren't familiar with our work, the Military Family Advisory Network, or MFAN, is a nonprofit that identifies the recurring and emerging pain points experienced by military families through a unique peer-to-peer network and our research. So we've been tracking in depth the issue of military food insecurity since 2017. And throughout this 5-year span alone, what we hear time and time again is two things. One, that there is stigma associated with asking for help. And two, military families are often ineligible for federal assistance programs. So on the stigma piece, military families are taught to be resilient, right? They have a reputation for being tough, showing perseverance, and having grit. And most troops are compelled to serve their nation. And for many, it's not a job, it's a vocation. And as we know, it's not just the service member that serves, but it's the entire family that sacrifices. So when it comes to asking for help with your finances or securing food for your family, there is often stigma and hesitance because of shame or fear of retribution from their command, or the mentality that, other families have it worse, so we're going to push through. We don't have it as bad as others. It shouldn't be this way, right? So I think we as leaders in the community, we have to do a better job at normalizing the conversation around food insecurity. We must raise awareness of the issue, one, but two, educate those who are going through it so that they can be advocates for themselves. Because bottom line, we need to make sure that families experiencing food insecurity know they're not alone, and we need to promote that help-seeking behavior. And then on the lack of access, there is a lot of bad math when it comes to military families and their eligibility for nutrition assistance. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, for example, the most notable case of this is that basic allowance for housing, BAH, right? It's currently counted as income when calculating eligibility for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. So a good start to establishing food and nutrition equity among our military families and removing these unnecessary barriers is to revisit those calculations. So I think we're encouraged to see the momentum that we've gained even in the past few months, in the past year, with the administration, within the Pentagon, and within Congress. So we're encouraged, I think, to see some solutions being presented to this decades-old issue. And just very quickly, I know I'm reaching my allotted time, but on your question about barriers faced by communities of colors, unfortunately, MFAN's latest survey shows a significant relationship between food insecurity and enlisted rank, geography, race, and ethnicity. Without getting too in the weeds, in short, white non-Hispanic respondents are statistically less likely to be hungry or food insecure than non-white Hispanic respondents. So I think this is all to say that when we're convening leaders at the table who are making these decisions that are going to affect military families for years to come, we need to emphasize and prioritize solutions for our underserved and underrepresented populations.
I agree, and very interesting, and we certainly understand what you're discussing. Yesterday, there was a huge announcement, or is it the day before yesterday, about the department's change, or certain things that are going to change, increase within the BAH, and also some help with the commissary budgets and everything that should certainly move the needle a little bit. As you keep that in mind, I want you to connect that with your research by MFAM, that the pandemic really exacerbated the already existing issue that is food insecurity among military families. So, what are some of the lasting impacts that this could have on this family? Just
Right.
what's happening around? Yeah.
Yeah. So pre-pandemic in 2019, MFAM's research told us that 1 in 8 military and veteran families were experiencing some level of food insecurity. At the height of the pandemic, that number rose to a shocking 1 in 5. And now our latest national study reports that number around 1 in 6. So let me start by saying food insecurity in America isn't a new issue, right? And it's, of course, not exclusive to just the military and veteran population, but this community does face unique obstacles that make them more susceptible. Last June, MFAM released a first of its kind study where we interviewed over 300 food insecure families to really pinpoint the causal factors and the resultant journey that ultimately lead a family to the point of food insecurity. And families told us about struggles with spousal employment. So military spouses face under or unemployment due to a recent move or the pandemic, or because they had childcare responsibilities at home. Second being growing families. So household expenses grew exponentially after having children. The third is frequent moves. So military families move on average every 2.5 years. So those who had recently undergone a permanent change of station struggle to find food support systems in their new community. The fourth factor would be unexpected expenses. So families incurred expenses they were not able to prepare or save for, like vehicle repair or a veterinarian bill. The fifth, external system shocks. So we had families in one geographic area of study in Texas that experienced a uncharacteristic ice storm that sparked food insecurity. And the last being the rising cost of living. So something that was alluded to earlier in this chat, but military pay compensation has not kept up with soaring costs or inflationary pressures. So for our military families, food insecurity and finances are inextricably linked. When a service member or spouse experiences just one of these adverse scenarios, things can really start to unravel quickly, and it creates this domino effect. And soon families are forced to make impossible decisions like, do I pay rent or do I buy groceries this week? So I think the factors I mentioned above sort of demonstrate the financial strain that can cause food insecurity. It helps us understand the issue of food insecurity among the ranks, but I think it also validates what we've heard firsthand from families for years, and can really help us create a launch pad to some of these long-term solutions.
Totally understandable, Derek. And when you talk about something like spousal unemployment, that makes it even worse for military families, because how can you keep a job when you have to move from here to there every couple of years? I don't know. It just makes everything very complicated, and that on its own is a whole other topic. I'm hoping to discuss that in one of our shows again. Thank you for raising that. Well, this brings us to one of the important support system issues that we talk about. I know for myself, I didn't have that. Everywhere I moved, I always felt alone. I always felt like this must be the worst. And yet the next one was like, this must be the worst. So I never knew how to describe which one was the worst. But that tells you how much support systems are. We see actually an uptick in grassroots efforts, veteran support, and food pantries around military communities. That is very, very curious. I'm very curious about all that. So I will go to Emily, who actually is on the ground doing some really great work. So Emily, what are some of the actions that you've taken in the Utah community in regard to food insecurity as Booster families? Tell us also about what you have done in the past and how this can help families.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lydia. I'm super excited to be here this morning because this is a really important topic, not just for myself, but I know the other chapter directors here at Blue Star Families. Food insecurity events are probably some of the the best work that we do in the community, because we really see the families that come out and take part in those types of events, and how absolutely thankful they are to be able to get that assistance at that time. But for the last several years, but especially since the pandemic, Boost Our Families has been working um, to put on, or to put a finer point on, our Nourish to Service programs in our chapter communities. And these are some type of food insecurity event where they can either come out and get food, or they're coming out and they're participating in some kind of activity, and then also being able to get a meal or a week's worth of meals or whatever that is to bring home for their families. So here in Utah, especially, we've kind of had like a perfect storm of things going on. Some of the things that Derek um, and Catherine are talking about is that we got people experiencing housing issues with rising rents. We've got spouses that are having trouble maintaining that second source of employment for the family, and then also just inflation on top of everything. Um, it really creates an issue for a lot of our military and veteran families who are struggling to put, already struggling to put food on the table. So just last year alone, here in Utah chapter, we really kind of ramped up our food insecurity efforts in response to these issues, because we know that there is like an inherent distrust sometimes with military families of seeking assistance from like state organizations, just because there's that fear that if they report something or they share their information, that somehow maybe that's going to get back to the DoD or get back to their unit. And in reality, these things aren't really occurring, but there is that fear that is out there, and that distress. So it's been a great opportunity for me personally, just to be able to offer some of these events in the community where families know and trust Blue Star Families, that we're not sharing their information, and that they can come and they can get assistance through some of our events. So in 2021, just in Utah chapter, we fed about 650 families last year with about 20,000 plus pounds of food. So last year was our kind of our big year, and really trying to get that assistance out there, and we're trying to just increase that each year. So we've already done one food insecurity event this year here. We kind of focused on new parents. We provided some extra support to those that have those new infants or incoming infants into their families. And then we will be doing some much larger efforts here in the next just over a month. We'll be doing a big Thanksgiving effort here, and then also a Christmas effort. We know those are the times that military families can really struggle around those holidays. Um, where there's already a lot going on, and extra stressful time. So we'll be putting together some extra meals and opportunities for families and ahead of both of those holidays, much like we do in a lot of our other chapter communities across the country. So this is definitely not unique to Utah. So if you're in one of our other chapter locations, definitely take a look and connect with your chapter director and see what we have going on. We have some great partnerships with another organization called the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes. They've been one of our big partners. When they partner with Feed the Children, and we're able to bring in essentially semi trucks of food into the community to feed up to 400 families at a time. So definitely, uh, if you're in need, definitely reach out to your local Blue Star Families chapter if there's one in your area, because we are usually standing by to assist with something in your community in regards to food insecurity.
Thank you very much, Emily. Um, Emily is in the middle of everything, doing so many things at the same time. And we appreciate you so much for taking time, even in the middle of hosting events and everything. You're here to share with us resources and tell us, what is currently going on. Derek, over to you. What is Amphan doing? I've seen you posting some interesting activities. I think last week you were somewhere. Tell us all about it.
Absolutely. Well, no, I love how Emily touched on partnerships, right? So I think if we're going to put a dent in hunger in our community, then I think it's going to be an all hands on deck effort. So it's really inspiring to see the work that we're all doing for our shared mission here. In terms of MFAN's work, in spring of 2021, when we learned that 1 in 5 military families were food insecure, we knew we had to act. So we focused on the partnership. Convened partners in the private and public sectors to launch the 1 Million Meals Challenge, which was a really ambitious goal of getting food to those who need it most in the communities identified by our research as being the most affected. And to date, we've distributed nearly 1.3 million meals to nearly 10,000 families nationwide through just 17 food distributions. So again, this is just it's great work, and we try to again lessen that stigma, remove some barriers, and provide that immediate relief. So continuing that work, we formed a combat military hunger initiative that provides that immediate relief, but also works with local and national partners to develop long-term solutions. So we're connecting families to ongoing support in their communities, and we're conducting further research to understand and ultimately address the issue. We've launched a task force of the world's leading food brands and companies to identify efficient, scalable, sustainable methods of getting food into the hands of those who need it the most. We offer a variety of free virtual education events on really practical topics like meal prep, avoiding food waste. We just had one on mental health and wellness. We talk about, saving for the unexpected, a PCS guide, you name it. And so I think just having these on-demand, approachable events, whether in person or virtually, does sort of help start that conversation and reiterate that we're all in this together, and there is no shame in asking for some help. So I think last, just to close, we also have a military family food insecurity coalition, and I know Blue Star Families and others sit on that. We've been meeting since 2018, and we bring together everyone, military connected nonprofits, advocacy organizations, policymakers, subject matter experts, and we all share data-driven ideas that is going to end hunger in our community. And so this is a great opportunity for families, if they feel so inclined, to join the conversation, share their story, because I think it helps to humanize the issue and elevate the voice of the modern military family.
I appreciate that. When both of you talk about coalition and collaborative, I'm reminded of one of my favorite lines that I learned recently by joining from BSF is change happens at the speed of trust. And this is an amazing line. I relate it to the White Oak Collaborative, which I see on almost every single communication on there. People come together, and these military organizations deciding that it's time to put our heads together, figure out what these problems are and how to solve them together. Because if people work together, one person's problems can become everybody else's problem. So thank you so much for everything that you do. Now, why do you think it's important to get in front of families and for families to see exactly what's going on around food insecurity? And I'm talking about hunger. And as you answer that, tell us about the White House Conference on Hunger. This is something I'm pretty excited about. This is to Derek.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, definitely. I think it's critical that we share the resources that we've mentioned in this call, and lift up one another's work. There's some incredible programs being offered by MSOs, VSOs. There are champions in Congress, right? There are food banks on the front lines, and we all have that common mission to ensure no military family ever goes hungry. But I think the reality is that families simply don't know where to start, right? Or they've reached a dead end after dead end when they're attempting to seek support. And we in this community, I think we tend to focus so much of our efforts, and understandably so, on seeking to create new programs or overhaul others when there are so many right underneath our nose. But sometimes these programs are buried 10 clicks on a website deep, or they look different at the local versus federal level. They're not centralized in one place. And that can be overwhelming and frustrating when you need support now and you have to go down a rabbit hole to find it. So I really think our goal here is resource connection to ensure military families are well informed about what's available to them, and they know where and how to access that support. So I think, something that is creating a lot of buzz is the White House conference happening this Wednesday. It's the first conference of its kind on hunger, nutrition, health since the Nixon administration in 1969. That's hard to believe, but this conference, it helped galvanize some really tangible actions. It produced programs like the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, better known as WIC, the school meals program, changes to how we label our foods. So I cannot underscore enough the historic and transformational opportunity that this presents us with ending hunger in the military community and beyond. I think you're going to see on the table at this year's conference, I think there are going to be things like considering universal and permanent, free reduced school lunches. We're going to revisit pandemic era relief, like the child tax credit, some of these things that are going to be truly game changers for military families. So I encourage everyone to join the conversation, because military and veteran families should be at the forefront and should be prioritized at this conference. So this is a very exciting time, and I think it's a testament of all of our work. It's for the military families who have bravely shared their story. It's for the advocates who have amplified their message, and then the leaders at the highest level who are trying to push this thing over the finish line. So I think there's more momentum than we've ever had in recent history on the issue, and that's exciting to see.
Amazing. I'm excited as well. Well, it's obvious that we certainly have a lot of work to do, which I think we would all agree with, or you wouldn't be here today, all of us. But the most important thing that we can try to do today is to help those listening get the support they need, especially financially. All these issues revolve around finances. Well, now that takes me back to the guru here, Catherine. What would you say is an important first step for anyone who is struggling with paying for food? Is it financial literacy? What is that, and how do I begin to become financially literate? Talk to us about your experience in a new country too. I want to learn, because I know I was I felt like I jumped from the frying pan into the fire when I got in here, and I didn't know the American financial system. Everything seemed like, I don't even know, Greek. I'd never even heard. This will help our audience who might be struggling to get acclimated to the American financial system as well, just like I was back then. Over to you, Catherine.
Okay, so yes, I think this is really important. And I want to respond to something Derek said as well about the stigma and the shame that might be associated with feeling financially like you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And this is, I told Lydia this story the other day. I lived in Europe before I grew up in the United States, and then I moved to Europe. And I realized there that financial literacy and financial incapability can happen to anyone. I have a PhD in economics. I'm the director of a center on financial and economic decision making. And when I lived in Europe, I could not solve my own basic financial problems, could not figure out how to buy insurance. I couldn't figure out how to open a bank account. This can happen to anyone, and you should not feel shame or stigma. Happened to me, can happen to you, and it's okay. And I think it's really, really important to say that to everybody, because this is not just about what you know, it's about the difficulties of making financial decisions in the circumstances that you face around you. So yes, we can all do more to learn how to make better financial decisions, but we also need to do more to help people's financial decisions be easier for them. No person, no individual should be struggling to figure out how their different benefits are going to be fit together, because we should have that figured out for them. I see that happening in the chat, people talking about the confusion between their different benefits. We should be making those things easier for them. We can help people find tools. I think the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has some really nice tools for helping military families. They have great tools for helping people figure out how to create a budget for themselves. And these are tools that can help you to avoid crisis. But once the crisis happens, then I point you to all these great resources that we heard about today, because those are really valuable too. Did I answer all your questions? I hope I did. But don't feel shame. Don't feel stigma. It can happen to you. It can happen to me. It can happen to all of us.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I know we've been going on and on and on, but I want to acknowledge our audience as well. We see you, Laura. We see you, Anne. Julie, thank you so much for joining. Janine, thank you for your questions and your comments as well. Please keep them coming. We are happy that you're here. And most importantly, please take advantage of all the resources we are dropping in the chat. Go there. And if you need some more, please contact myself and contact us at go to bsf.org. You will find thousands and thousands more. As we continue, we have learned a little about financial literacy. Now, in the meantime, while a family facing food insecurity is working on their finances, as Catherine has tried to tell us, what should they do right here, right now, to make sure they're getting enough food? Some amazing information gathered today, of course. So please, Derek and Emily, please let us in on what are these things that families should do.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think in addition to the resources that you're seeing being dropped here in the chat, like some things that may just fly under the radar and are really accessible, right? And it's not an official program or resource per se, but in the spirit of Welcome Week, I would simply say, don't be afraid to lean on your neighbors and local community members. In my work, I'm laser focused on bridging this military and civilian divide, this gap in understanding. And more often than not, in conversations I have with, these a corporate social responsibility office, right, with a major corporation, or even just someone who's unfamiliar with military lifestyle, these people are looking for ways to help, and they may have previously been unaware of the financial strain that families are going through, and are looking for ways to help. So while I know the food distribution model is not sustainable and is a band-aid, as we said earlier in the program, it's not the permanent solution to end hunger. But what food banks and pantries are doing are putting food on the table for families who are on the brink of hunger. So we talk about this great momentum we have, where we're seeing some policy developments and this sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is, a hungry family cannot wait on, proposed legislation that's sitting in a committee, right? So what these food pantries and neighborhood resources are doing are putting food on the table for families right away. So I think in addition to your local food pantries, like there's a great tool on the Feeding America website, where you can enter your zip code and find some food relief. Don't forget about social media. If you're comfortable, join community groups on social. Start there. Your neighbors probably have already posted about, where to get food, or a financial resource, a workshop that's coming up. And if not, you can ask. So, we've got these great military spouse pages. We've got your chaplain's office. That's a really good place to start. A lot of people don't think about. And then grants and services through military relief societies. So these aid societies are a great resource, organized by branch of service, all who have resources specific to military families that can help. So just a few places to start your search.
Thank you, Derek. Um, Emily, do you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, and I actually put together some tips because we know families that are struggling with trying to, build a budget that will work for them. Sometimes building the grocery shopping in there can be a little bit difficult. So we had some tips that we wanted to put out there. So if you have the ability, always shop your commissary benefit if you can. That's going to be your best um, maximization of your savings, because typically you're getting your groceries at or below cost depending upon where you live. And there was some exciting news coming out of the DoD just like this morning, talking about how they're going to be expanding some commissary benefits and making it even cheaper for you to shop. But obviously, we understand that people live everywhere. We live in sometimes rural communities where we don't have access to a commissary. So if you have to shop on the economy, find a grocery store that you like that has a really great rewards program, something that's going to help you maximize your budget. There are a lot that have great digital coupons. They have special sales for members. Some of them have cash back. Some of them have free grocery pickup. My local grocery store here even has a fuel discount program, so it helps you get a little bit back on your fuel savings, especially if you don't have access to purchasing fuel on the installation. Stick to off brands for the most savings if you're really struggling. I know even in my family sometimes like we'd get really upset that we didn't have like actual Lucky Charms, but at the end of the day the off brand Lucky Charms taste the exact same as regular Lucky Charms, where you're paying a whole lot less. So if you have to like trick your family and put the off brand Lucky Charms into a real Lucky Charms box, do what you got to do. But
Mm-hmm.
those off brands are always going to give you your most savings. Check out coupons, and then these days with modern technology, check out cashback apps. Those can give you some really added benefit. They're going to give you some cash back on items that you already purchased. So you're going to have to put up your regular grocery spending up front, but on certain items you'll be able to get a little bit of cash back in your pocket. So those can help for your future grocery purchases. And then you always want to plan ahead anytime you're going to the grocery store. You want to have a list. You want to make sure that you're planning ahead for all of your non food purchases. We tend to forget that when we go to the grocery store, we're buying a lot more than just food. We're buying cleaning products, we're buying laundry detergent, we're buying health and beauty. And sometimes those are the more expensive items that we have to purchase on a monthly basis. So don't forget to be making sure that you're accounting for that in your grocery budget when you shop. And then the best tip I give is never shop when you're hungry, because you will overspend every time because you are starving. So have a snack, have lunch. Just don't shop while you're hungry. But outside of that, I think the biggest tip, I think if you do have access to if you're struggling and you have access to some sort of food bank, food pantry where you can pick up a few extra items, um, to kind of help supplement that grocery budget. Um, while you're struggling, definitely do it. Like the less you have to spend, um, and you can put that money towards other things in your budget or other budgets for bills, then that's always the best. So just don't worry about the stigma. If you can get help from somewhere, reach out and get that assistance for your family.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much. Janine in the comments was talking about the school lunch programs and how some military families are treated differently from others, and there should be some uniformity. I agree with you. And I can see Kimberly talking about making the lunch programs to be permanently free, reduced lunch. So there are many suggestions too on the chat. So thank you guys for that. There's been great and amazing information gathered here today. I want to thank my panelists, Catherine, Derek, and Emily. Thank you very much for being so passionate about helping our communities and our military families. This is an important subject that is impacting so many. We would love to hear from you, our viewers, as well. So please reach out if you need more resources or you want to share some that you find helpful. Please leave us a comment in the chat and reach out to the organization as well. Remember, Blue Star Family Welcome Week is happening right now. We will continue this week as well and throughout the year to cover subjects like this. So join us for our next Money Mondays session on October 17th, where we will be discussing student loan forgiveness programs. You don't want to miss that, do you? Thank you again, and from everyone at Blue Star Families, have a great day. And as always, I have a call to action. If not me, who? And if not now, when? See you again soon. Bye bye.